Have you ever been in a situation where you thought a coworker treated a patient differently because of his or her race, gender, or other personal characteristic? But you didn't want to say anything, fearing you would jeopardize your relationship with the coworker, or even your job. It can be very stressful as we struggle with making the best decision. Imagine you notice one of your colleagues consistently giving what seems like preferential treatment to patients of a particular race or ethnicity, regardless of their health conditions. Do you choose to ignore this behavior and avoid a conflict, knowing that some patients will be underserved? Or do you confront your colleague or even report the incident, but risk being seen as a troublemaker? The good news is that by the end of this brief video, you'll have the tools to confidently make the best choice in these situations. You'll make the right choices for both yourself and for the company, avoid potential disciplinary action, and feel a whole lot better in the process. The first step to avoiding discrimination in healthcare is being able to define it. Discrimination occurs when any patient is denied equal access to quality healthcare, specifically due to personal characteristics such as race, color, national origin, sexual orientation, sexual identity, age, religion, or disability. Such discrimination is in conflict with our organization's values and is also against the law. Next, you must be able to recognize situations in which discrimination occurs. Some examples of discrimination in healthcare include the following scenarios, which are all drawn from actual cases investigated by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Office for Civil Rights. A nurse ignores a patient of color who needs urgent medical attention for close to an hour and attends to a white patient without a health emergency, who waits fewer than 5 minutes for care. An emergency department physician denies a mother with limited English proficiency an interpreter when she requests one. Instead, the physician uses the mother's 13-year-old son as the interpreter while he is being treated. Staff members at a hospital create a hostile environment for a transgender woman and require her to share a room with a male patient. A hospital fails to provide patients who are deaf or hard of hearing with adequate access to sign language interpreters. Emergency department employees ridicule a male patient who sustained injuries in a domestic incident and fail to evaluate the patient under a domestic violence protocol because he is male. If we become aware of such behaviors, we must immediately act to correct the situation. This may mean confronting a coworker to stop the discrimination if you are able. But whenever you suspect that a patient or his or her companion has been discriminated against based on their personal characteristics, you must report the incident to a manager or to the compliance office immediately. In such situations, you should also be prepared to step up and contact the appropriate individuals who can help facilitate equal access while the patient is still receiving care. Remember, we all have a responsibility to be patient advocates. This means that, among other things, we must always do the following. Ensure that all patients have equal access to extraordinary and compassionate healthcare, regardless of personal characteristics like race, color, national origin, sexual orientation, sexual identity, age, religion, or disability. Ensure that patients and their companions requiring it have access to a qualified, competent interpreter for either spoken language or sign language. And never rely on unqualified staff interpreters, minors, or others where there could be a competency concern, except in a life-threatening emergency. Ensure that we provide care in a manner consistent with our policies defining qualified services for the deaf, blind, and otherwise disabled patients and their companions. Ensure that patients are provided with an opportunity to identify their preferred name and gender. Be mindful of room placement to ensure the safe, ethical, appropriate, and non-discriminatory assignment of rooms for patients who are transgender. Ensure that we follow a gender-neutral procedure for reporting incidents involving domestic abuse. In summary, eliminating discrimination requires that we be able to define it. We must recognize when it is happening, and we must act to stop it, which includes reporting the incident immediately to a manager or to the compliance office. Going back to the situation involving your colleague consistently giving preferential treatment to certain groups of patients, it's now probably pretty clear that you must act by notifying a manager or contacting the compliance office. In the short run, it may feel like you're jeopardizing your relationship with a coworker, but in the long run, you'll ensure that patients not only experience a discrimination-free and respectful environment, but also receive the care they deserve. Now, doesn't that make you feel better already? If you have any questions about discrimination in healthcare, please contact our compliance office. We're here to help.